All right. I'm Raj from BPM Supreme. Thanks for coming out. BPM Supreme is the #1 digital record pool for DJs. We're a source for DJs to get their music. So if you're an aspiring DJ out there, check out BPM Supreme, and we have what you need. We want to give a big special shout out right now to the West Coast Weekender themselves, Oscar P., everybody involved. Thanks for having this amazing event. We appreciate you. Shout out to Jim from DJ Times, who had an awesome panel before this. Time for the introductions, what we're all here to see. My man to the right, two-time DMC USA team champion. You are an artist for DJs, a mega talented an artist. You're a DJ for artists, a mega talented turntablist, and you are a Southern California native. Give it up for Cwitch. All right. My man to my left, he is a hip-hop historian, turntablist, producer, hosted his own TED Talk, competed on the first Master of the Mix program, and is coming all the way to us from Philadelphia. Make some noise for Rich Medina. And to his left, we have one of America's best DJs with the awards to prove it. He's collaborating with some of the most influential hip-hop and EDM artists. He is the co-host of SiriusXM's Influence of Hip-Hop with LL Cool J, and fresh off of an over-hour interview with Dr. Dre. Everybody give it up for Z-Trip. All right, the next to his left, this badass turntablist, DJ, teacher, actor, and founder of Heavy Artillery Records. Give it up for DJ Shortee. All right. And then also completing our panel to the left of Shortee, artist relations for one of the biggest DJ softwares on the planet, Serato, founder of Ill Vibe Collective, and also it's his birthday weekend. Everybody give it up for Sonny James.
Well, technically my birthday's in like 2 weeks, but I'll take it. Yeah, thank you.
It's his birthday soon.
All month.
Yeah.
Birthday month.
I'll take the gifts now and celebrate later.
How many times do I get to shout out your birthday, you know? So I want to make you feel special.
Be my guest, bro.
Hey, Raj, it's his birthday.
Happy birthday! All right, well, now that the introductions are done, I want to go ahead and jump right into it. But first, before I get to the questions, you guys affect what questions we're going to ask. So is anyone in here a turntablist or aspiring DJs or turntablists? Raise your hand if you are. All right, good.
You'll
good.
get there one day. You'll get there one day.
Nice, nice. All right, cool. So I know that we can get a little bit nerdy, a little bit technical. That's good. Awesome. Thank you for participating here. Now, we are going to go to the first question. We'll start on the right and just go all the way down. We have, when did you fall in love with turntablism?
So when I fell in love with it, I guess from the start, really. Just watching, like, guys at the time when I started, like Junkies, Pickles, Executioners, like what they were doing was really second to none compared to, like, I mean, not knocking other DJing, but like, it was just amazing, you know what I mean? So at that point, I was like, that's it, you know what I mean? How to do it. Fell in love with it then and there.
I think I fell in love with DJing well before turntablism, but as for turntablism, one of my closest friends in middle school, Erwin Smalls, also known as Wiz, was actually dancing for Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. So I got to see the Live in Union Square routine before it was public. I'm from Lakewood, New Jersey, so I was seeing everybody from Ernie Kendall to Grandmaster Rock Raider just doing things with turntables that were just, 99% of humanity couldn't do. So it's been a long time.
I fell in love with it, again, probably DJing before turntablism became a thing, but Marley Marl, Red Alert, listening to BLS and Kiss FM in New York, listening to the mix shows. That's when I first sonically fell in love with it. Visually, I think I was completely blown away, as was everybody who was into the music that I was into in my school. When we saw, I think it was the American Music Awards, when we saw DST scratching on the Rocket song for Herbie Hancock, and that was it. That was, once I saw it, like I'd heard it and studied it and loved it, but when I saw it, I was like, it connected all the dots, like Voltron was formed off of that one.
I actually fell in love with turntablism first before DJing because I'm a drummer. And I started out playing drums when I was really little. And so I played drums all through high school and college, total band geek. But I was also into going to raves, so I knew of the DJ, and I knew of like hip hop, like Run DMC and Beastie Boys, but I wasn't really a hip hop head. I was more into electronic dance music. But I didn't respect the DJ because as a traditional musician, I was like, wiki, that's so easy. Anyone can do that. I play a real instrument. I can read music. Like, what is, okay. But I enjoyed going to the parties, and I had fun. But then I had a friend at that time who was like, oh, my friend's visiting, and he's in my living room, and he's scratching. You should come check it out. And I was like, whatever. He's like, no, come over. So I went over, and there was this dude in the living room with dreads, like to here, and I had a dread fetish at that time, so so I was like, who's that guy? And he was scratching, and I'd never seen anybody scratch like that before. He was doing all these Latin rhythms and rhythms I couldn't even play on my drums, and I was like, what is that? And then that night I was playing with my punk rock band at the time, playing drums, and that guy came out to see me play at this college house party. He stood behind me while I was playing, and when we were done playing, he came up, he's like, you're really good on the drums. I was like, dude, you're an amazing scratch DJ. How do you do that? And he's like, well, it's a percussion instrument. I can teach you. And that was, I was 19, so 1995, and we're married, and he's right there, and he taught me the basics of all the basic scratches, and
Side note.
He DJ'd our wedding.
Yes.
Oh, wow, nice.
Chirps and stuff like that, transforms, but there were no flares and there were no crabs back then, so we got to learn that together, and that's something that's really dope about scratching, and I think one of the reasons why I still have such a passion for it, and we were just talking about this a second ago, is because there's always something new to learn. Like with DJing, it's like, mixing, you can get creative to a certain point, but with scratching and turntablism, you're playing an instrument. And it's like your soul, like coming out, the music that didn't exist before, so that's why I love it. But so that's how I fell in love with it also, and I fell in love with him as well.
2 times the love, that's great. Yeah.
So for me, I came up in Philly, and similar to Z-Trip, radio was a huge influence. In Philly, I'm going to say in the 90s, it was Cosmic Kev, DJ Ran, DJ J-Ski, and Touchtone were probably like my main influences. And yeah, I mean, just to hear what those guys were able to do and manipulate in real time and still keep it funky and still make it interesting for people who just want to hear songs, that was everything to me. So I wanted to basically take that and just do my own thing. And obviously there were guys like Cash Money and Jazzy Jeff, and there's countless others in Philly who deserve a lot of credit. But yeah, a lot of it was radio for me.
So we're gonna continue. We're gonna go reverse order this time. And what were the first 2 records you bought?
Sheesh, that's one of those questions you send ahead of time. I'm gonna say it was probably. See, the thing is, I inherited a lot of records from my parents, to be fair. So, I have promos of like Secret Weapon, Must Be the Music. Those are some of the earlier ones that I remember. And probably, Breakdance, West Street Mob.
Nice. And to clarify, these are 2 records that you bought for the purpose of DJing. So,
Correct.
you know, not just like when, you know, you got your first physical vinyl, because that might have been just recreational. This is when you first got your, you know, for DJing purposes.
Fair question. I think maybe the first records I bought might have been Mad Lion, Box of Blunts.
You're putting me on the spot. I did have a prepared answer, which was Michael Jackson's Thriller, but I was like 6 at the time, so that's not for DJing. We were playing a lot of electronic dance music back then, so I would say we have 1 foot in hip hop, but it was like obscure beats and breaks, not really vocally hip hop, and then 1 foot in electronic dance music. So it was more of like bass bin twins. So they're like breaks. We were playing breaks, progressive house, techno around then. So bass bin twins and maybe like Chemical Brothers or. I don't know, it's like, it was a mishmash. We would just go and like, this cover looks cool. But in the electronic dance music scene, it was a little different. There would be like white labels and you wouldn't even know who it was. Whereas hip hop is like, you know, came out with a CD and an album and or a record and stuff, so it's a little different. But I can tell you the first records that I mixed, which was Peter Piper, Run DMC.
Nice.
And I was drunk at a house party. It was before we met, and I mixed it first time, and I was like, oh, this is too easy. And then we had that conversation too, and you don't feel challenged by it. So that just perpetuated the wiki, that's easy. But I was wrong, clearly.
The first record I ever bought with my own money was The Story of Star Wars, which was the narration of the movie.
Nice.
I bought that at a checkout line at like the equivalent of a Vons or whatever. It was like, you know, just sitting there next to the Kit Kat and the Snickers or whatever. I bought that. But the first records I bought with the intention of trying to absorb this music was Jam On It by Nucleus. That was in '84. And I heard that, and I was like, what the hell is this song? Because it's long, right? And it's, you know, you got these guys rapping, and then you got these people rapping in these little munchkin voices. I was like, what is that? You know what I mean? It was amazing. Sonically, it had all this stuff going on. And then I think as well, I mean, it's funny because how it got to me was through a couple different avenues. AJ Scratch by Curtis Blow was another big record for me. Art of Noise, Beatbox. Again, these were songs that had these beats to them that were just like tremendous and heavy, and that sort of opened. I also was a drummer too. I started out as a drummer, so anything that I heard that had beats in it, I was gravitating towards. But I also grew up with these records that were kind of quasi hip hop records, like Led Zeppelin when the Levee breaks with this big drum break at the beginning, which ultimately was end up used on a Beastie Boys record, and you know, some of these big records that were very, very drum heavy. I started to hear people sampling James Brown records and things. So it's like I had some of them sort of already in my quiver as a kid via my brother or just records that my family had. But I remember going out and buying Jam On It and mispronouncing it. Actually going to the counter and going, "Do you have Jamoni?" The guy's like, "What are you talking about?" Jamoni. He's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." So I had to figure out how to decipher what I was hearing and process what it was saying because it was all brand new. I didn't understand what was real, but I just knew the record was electric. It was powerful. So that's the first one. Anytime I see Jam On It on Sonny View, I still pick it up and it's like, there's a part of me that just wants to buy it on the spot because it's like, I want to own every copy of that damn thing. But yeah. Jam On It.
The first record I ever bought with my own allowance money was Kiss Alive 2. I was into the, Gene Simmons with the fucking tongue out to the end of the crowd, spitting blood. No, I was very dead. Yeah, it was all dead, right?
We found that out at the end. We were all devastated by that. However,
yeah, that was heartbreaking. Like Paul Stanley lost some cool points with me for that one. The first record I ever purchased with my own money for DJing was a record called Al Nafeish, because I mean, next to Ultimate Breaks and Beats, buying doubles of those records, Al Nafaish, and Cybertron, and all of those electro-funk break records that Bambaataa and the whole Zulu vocabulary brought to the table were enormous for me. I mean, I'm old as dirt, but you know, as a kid, everybody in the neighborhood had either had 2 copies of that record, or you were taking your 2 copies to somebody else's crib to learn patterns. Even if at that point, this is grammar school, so it's just you learning baby scratches and how to drop on the one and how to define the one and all of those things. So those records were highly formative for me.
So I started DJing when turntablism was like being brewed, and it was being termed at the time. So when I discovered that there's like actual record stores, the first record that I bought was the DJ Rectangle scratch record. It was the one with it was a gray marble texture, and it had like the red printing on it. So that was the first one, and that's literally what I would use to like scratch over like beats on tapes. So I would get my samples from there. But before I knew about record stores, I would go to like garage sales. And the first record I brought home from a garage sale was it's a great 808 slow jam love song, which is Cwitch, I will always be there for you. It's a great song, don't you know what I mean? But but on the B side, there was this party track, and that's what I mean. Other than it being a great song, I'm gonna keep stressing that it's a great song. But on the B side, there was a party track, and the intro, like, it had this little scratch in the beginning, and before getting into the beat, and that for some reason, being new to DJing and scratching at the time, like, for me to learn how to do that, like, was like the world. And it was real simple. It's like a chick, 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 boom. And like, so yeah, that was it. It was Cwitch, I Will Always Be There For You. And DJ Rectangle's Gray Scratch record. That was my first.
Awesome, great answer. All right, guys. So we're going to reverse the order again, and we're going to say with a 2-parter question, do you still play all vinyl sets, and what are the challenges of playing an all vinyl set in a modern time?
I'm kind of getting up there in age too, so I mean, I like to not have the stress of carrying all the records. So if I can, I will go with the digital route. But I'm always open to, and I actually love when opportunities come up where it's you know, they want an all vinyl set. As far as difference goes with playing all vinyl sets, like in reality, I think I don't really see a big difference with it, other than the fact that with digital, you can like instantly skip to certain parts of the tracks where, I mean, which it's known as cue points, where before all that stuff, cue points to us was like putting the sticker down and just lining up and sliding in. So you probably missed like a second or 2 delay just lining up, but other than that, like, that's the only difference I really see.
I'm an analog guy to the bone, and I was really reluctant about playing digitally, even down to when the Pioneer CDJs first came out. I was like, the fuck is that? You know, just on some purist bullshit, totally uninformed, totally ignorant to the advancement of technology. I'm like, that's a fake turntable, so whatever. Eventually, as we do in the game, you know, the game will make you real honest, and you have to adapt or get passed by. So then it went to, rather than 4 flight cases of records, it was 2 flight cases of records and 3 big ass bags of CDs. And then that became a pain in the ass. And then Serato came out, and everybody's like, yo, I sold my records, my back don't hurt no more, da da da. And I was like, you know, it's interesting, carrying records has never caused me an injury. You sound like you're out of shape. So I was like, fuck Serato, I don't want to deal with that shit either. The fuck I'm a DJ out of a fucking computer for? Like, fuck out of here. Then I was in Europe at a festival with Lord Finesse and Black Thought. And Black Thought was supposed to perform and Finesse was supposed to perform. I knew they were on the bill, being still fully analog. I had a couple of Roots intros, couple of Thought intros, couple of Lord Finesse intros. And Finesse was like, but you could just play it off my Serato. And I was like, ew, fuck that, ew. And then he took me in his room. He took a Rain 57 mixer out. He took his laptop out and he was like, look at this. Look at the computer and look at this. You see what I'm doing? This is my whole set right here. Look at that. See that? You see that? That's all you gotta do. Do that over there. Do that over there. And I was like, the whole universe opened up to me. So the first time I ever played on a digital set was DJing a 30-minute show for Lord Finesse, of all people. And just blew my mind. You know, all of a sudden I'm walked into this room of technical possibilities that, as talented as any turntablist I know is, or as talented as I might consider myself to be, you just can't move around the wax in that way. Fast forward to 2019, digital is still an exception to me. And the reason I play digital as often as I do these days is because most venues that we work in now are built to play digital, meaning the booth is mounted to the floor that the subs are sitting on, and there's no pucking, there's no sonic disposition provided for the vocabulary that says vibrations from a subwoofer go through the legs of the table, go to the feet of the turntable, go to the signal path of the turntable. And that's why your record starts sounding like this sometimes. Because it's not because records suck. It's because whoever designed that venue, you were an afterthought. We are an afterthought. The biggest, flyest clubs that we go play in, put a record on in there and then tell me how much he believes in your game. So for me, analog is a default to the territory. I have a different respect for it now, of course, and a different appreciation for what the toolbox brings to the table. But for me, you know, I'm still of that old school mentality, and I don't really think it's an old school mentality. I mean, they put an ear on each side of your head so you can hear in stereo. If you look at MP3 technology, they chop off the top, they chop off the bottom, and they squeeze the rest. So you can't hear the finger slides on the bass. You can't hear that deep breath before the last vocal run. For me, that's an enormous component of my presentation as a disc jockey. And it's also a great deal of the reason why musicians that once turned their nose up at us began to take us seriously, because they can hear those nuances in their own presentation, but only in stereo format. And the only way you get stereo is with analog.
Hey, do you mind if I add something to the vinyl and digital era? So one thing I actually do miss from the vinyl era is being able to feel the groove, which a lot of people is not really informed. Like the way that phonograph is read is, the waveform is literally printed onto the record, you know, where with digital era, the waveform is viewed on our screen. Talking turntablism here, using actual vinyl and being able to feel that groove makes a difference. You know what I mean? Just helps you be more precise, because you literally can't feel. I mean, if you played with timecode records versus vinyl, like timecode is just a strictly like just one line. So there's really no like traction and feel. Like you can feel the basses, especially if it's a heavy bass cut into the actual vinyl. You can feel as you move, and you can feel that opening into it. Versus with timecode, it's just a strict line going all the way through. But yeah, that's actually one thing I miss. So doing sets, I actually like doing sets on actual vinyl, just because you can feel the groove and you can be a little more precise. Digital, I still like the digital thing, but like I said, it's a little different just because feel-wise.
Texture of the record, right?
Yes.
And no Serato face.
Yeah, no Serato face, because you got to look down to see that waveform.
So for me, I used to really give a shit about it, but now I just hit play, and I just stand back. It's awesome. I get paid the same amount of money. I just hit one button, and I just sit back. It's the best. No, I'm joking. Some people do that though. Can't knock the hustle. Well, they got to do something with
Can
your
you do the
hands
heart
at that
hand?
point.
Can you-
What are you
the
gonna?
heart hand.
You gonna do your taxes up there? What are you gonna be doing? Answer an email? You gotta do something. No, I'm just taking a piss out of it. I don't care either way, to be honest. Like, I mean, I think it's all preference. I still love and still buy vinyl. Probably more 7 inches these days than anything else, just because when people are asking me to do vinyl sets, which I may do on occasion, I tend to try and do 7-inch sets because they're lighter to carry and smaller to travel with. And it's just more fun because you're dealing with less real estate. And there's a part of me that still likes to do vinyl sets because it keeps my blade sharp, right? So if I actually have to put a sticker on a 45 and it's going faster than, and it's smaller, it's like it to get the payoff and to do the thing that you're trying to do with it, it still keeps one foot firmly placed in where I started. However, as much as I enjoy doing that, almost a little bit more for nostalgic purposes or just for me, I'm a huge fan of digital and being able to manipulate things on the fly and program on the fly. Some of the things I do, for instance, when LL and I play together, maybe 10 minutes before we'll go out and do the set, we'll be like, you know what, hey man, the guy who just went on before us did this, and that changes the whole demographic, so how about we change and let's swap and, game time sort of last play Hail Mary things that we're doing right before we're about to roll out on stage. And I wouldn't be able, it'd be harder to do it with vinyl because I'd have to lift up stickers and I'd rearrange my crate. This is like boom, 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 okay, cool, cue point, loop point, boom, bang, all right, let's go out and do it. And I'm able to execute that in a very short amount of time. So having the ability to do that digitally is amazing. But at the same time, it's one of these things where I'm a fan of the stance. I'm a fan of keeping one foot firmly placed in what the rituals and the ethos of what this is, what that's based in, and then take the other foot and trying to go as far away from that as possible and live between the two and have my stance be that. So I'm a fan of, of making it easier for us to DJ and giving us more tools and more ability to push boundaries and manipulate this music and time stretch it and pitch shift it and chop it up and do all sorts of things. So for me, I always try and keep one finger placed on the pulse of what's next, like bleeding edge, to the point where I'm playing on beta versions of things that may crash in front of thousands of people, just because I'm so passionate about trying to have the latest technology to allow me to do that. But at the same time, I still love, showing up with, 2 crates of records and just, okay, this is we've lowered the bar now down to the point of you have to have these records, you have to know you have to know what the records are, you have to make sure that you're able to do something with this. And so it's really sort of, if I can actually have the old scrolls and the new scrolls and be able to go between the two, I find it being something that's really beneficial for me. But that's just, again, some people are like, no, I'm cool with the old stuff, just want the new stuff. That's cool too. And I also want to say, while we're on the subject of that, as much as I take the piss out of somebody hitting play on a set and having all the pyro and all the other things happen, it's almost like sync or paint by numbers. I don't go for that. That doesn't do anything for me as an artist. However, if it's working for you and the crowd is into it and you figure out a way to sort of skip the line, I can't be a hater and be like, you're not doing it the way we do it. It's like, well, cool, you figured out your own business model if that works for you and the crowd's open to it. And at the end of the day, if no one's dying, there's no negative out of it other than the fact that you're not upholding the ethics of the blueprint. Well, I could just call you out on that, but at the end of the day, if you're making your money and people are happy, if that's where we are, then, look, we're living in a space where, we type X amount of characters, in a tweet, or, we're regulated to minute-long video clips of things where everything is so like this that, who am I to be like, no, you need to take the long way, take the long path. I'm a fan of that because I feel like the good stuff is actually in the journey as opposed to the destination. But I can only preach that so much. That's something that people either have to want to find or find on their own to understand the magnificent part of that versus me being like the old guy, like, stay off the grass, come on, you kids. Like, I can't be that. Yeah, I can't be that guy. And I never want to be that guy. And I'm always a fan of what's on the bleeding edge. But I kind of hold a certain thing of like loving vinyl, loving where we started and having an appreciation for that, still have my collection. But at the same time, like, if I could DJ off my phone and my wristwatch and still get the same result, let's try that. Let's do that too. So, I don't know.
Let's be clear, though, that, yeah, I applaud for that, because I totally agree with that. And in that the whole technology thing, like, a lot of people blame technology for, like, the scene going to crap or whatever, or, like, bad DJs. But to be clear, like, you can be a bad DJ and have the most amazing gear, and you're still a bad DJ. They're just tools. You just choose your tools. Are you going to drink out of this vessel, or are you going to drink out of this, and it's your choice. He would prefer that. So it's what you do with it. If you're a good DJ, and whether you're on vinyl or whether you're on new technology, you're still going to be a good DJ. You're going to use the tools. So I guess some people get upset, when it's just pressing play and you're letting the gear do the work for you. But then again, like you said, some people don't have, maybe not, I don't want to necessarily say the word talent, but some people don't, it's not natural to them to want to perform like that. So this is their way of speaking. It's their way of being able to perform. And I kick this over to Bobby, DJ Faust. When he started, like, he didn't have access to instruments or anything like that. Like, the turntable was his way of playing music, right? Air quotes, playing music. But now when you're scratching, you're really playing your own music. And so his parents were saying the same thing about him. Get off my lawn, like that kind of thing. Like, this technology, play a real instrument. I said it, play a real instrument. So it's just like the generations just have their new version of that, I think. But in terms of your question, when we jumped on the digital bandwagon way early. I started in '95, and he started younger than me, so we had plenty of years on vinyl. But when Final Scratch came out, we were in Amsterdam at the time, working with these people on trying to create a MIDI turntable. Like, we were trying to create what Final Scratch did. As it came out, we're like, oh, we were going to do that. But then it didn't really matter because we just wanted it, And so... And being in, like I said, we have had one foot in like hip hop and 1 foot in electronic dance music. So we were also very into drum and bass. So us being we then went from Final Scratch to Serato and touring, especially in the UK and stuff like that. I would get hated on so much for using Serato from the purist junglists, the drum and bass people, because they were like, no, vinyl. And talk about the clubs being set up for digital now. Touring in Europe then, as a drum and bass DJ, I had my mixer, and I put a board on top, and then I put my mixer on top of their mixer, and I'm plugging in my Serato box, and I'm coming in with all my crap. And it was just not set up for a digital world. And so it's really interesting now that the purists, we're old schoolers. I don't know if I would necessarily call us purists because we're open to technology, but the purists are like vinyl only, and it's like a flip-flop of what that journey was for us. But yeah, so we've, in terms of playing all vinyl sets now, to your question, no, I don't play all vinyl sets now, and it's because I don't play hip-hop anymore. I lost my passion for hip hop, and I never had a passion for top 40, but I had to, when we were playing hip hop, back when we would play with Zach, when he DJ'd our wedding, and around that time we would play like obscure beats and breaks. We were doing these future primitive sound sessions in the Bay where it would just be like creative, and you'd have video. It was like no one was doing video behind DJs back then, and there was a painter and he would paint and to the music, and it was all like this experience, and that's what we fell in love with. And then it came a point where there was no market for that anymore, and you had to play top 40 in order to make a living as a DJ. And at the same time, the rave scene tanked. So we really had to play top 40 to make a living. The new beats, tiny little millisecond of latency that I notice it. It's like most people don't notice it, but when I scratch, I'll scratch with Serato and have a blast, but when I get a vinyl record, it's just, maybe it's feeling the grooves, or I'm not sure what it is, but I just feel the difference distinctly. So I still scratch with vinyl, but no, I don't do all vinyl sets.
This is going to sound really crass, and I apologize, but it's the analogy we've all used for many years. It's like having sex with or without a condom. That's the best analogy.
And that is a great analogy.
I'm sorry, there's no other analogy that can really do it justice, but scratching digitally,
Messy.
scratching digitally and scratching analog, there's a feel that's sort of happening there versus digital. It's just not the same.
There's a filter when you're scratching digitally. There's something in between, like the condom.
Hence the analogy. I'm not the guy who came up
This
with it.
is
I'm just
21 and
passing
up,
on
right?
the information.
It's 21 and
Passing
up.
along.
Here you go.
So,
And Sonny James.
From Serato.
Trojans of Magnums.
so it looks like a Bash Serato segment of the panel. Well done, well done. I'm just kidding. What I'd like to see happen across the board is for us to get away from these religious stances where you have to do this or that. You know, I like Drake, and I also like People Under the Stairs. Kill me. I feel like as far as vinyl goes, that's a part of who I am as a human being. I love playing music for people more than anything, more than I'm attached to a specific tool, specific medium. My goal is to play music for people who enjoy hearing music put together in a certain style. So having said that, whatever the tool is, let's go. If it's, like you said, if you could play from your watch or an iPad or whatever, if we can mix two records together and make it interesting, let's do it. To answer your question, Raj, yeah, I still play vinyl. I still buy vinyl all the time. I particularly like to buy vinyl when I travel, though, because there's just something special about that memory. And there's something just, it's something special. It's like the relationship that I have to my records. I can remember the country I was in. I can remember the store. I can remember the sticker that was on the label, even if it's peeled off. I can remember every single piece about that particular piece of vinyl that I bought, and that's why it's still so important to me. To answer your question about the challenge, though, Rich mentioned being out of shape earlier. The carrying the records is the one part, but when you actually play 4 to 6 hours on vinyl after you've been playing digital for 15 years, it's a workout. So, especially when, you might not have tables and chairs and things to put your crates on. A lot of times I'll have and I always bring too many records. That's the other thing. It's like my crew in Philly always makes fun of me because I, pack everything to the gills, and I always bring too many crates or too many Techniques bags or whatever, and I'm like up and down all night. I'm like, on the floor with a flashlight in my mouth, like flipping through records, and it's exciting, but it's also quite a workout. Like by the time I get done, I feel like I've been carrying around a dead body all weekend.
Can I add one thing? You just reminded me of something. So, but with beat juggling, I definitely prefer Serato because when the record skips, when you beat juggle, your whole routine is messed up. like, and you got to recover somehow. And so one of the most helpful skills being a turntablist isn't just having turntablist skills, it's also having recovery skills. So everyone up here knows that. If you can recover and make it sound funky, like that's just as awesome as being able to do the triple backflip flare or whatever. But I will say really quick, with beat juggling, it's like, yeah, like the stickers and whatever, but with Serato, it's like you could jump a cute point and do some other, like it opens up the doors with beat juggling. I feel technology really, and then if you add tone play and you're using the technology like that and finger drumming, but that's going a little extra. But even just with classic beat juggling, I mean, I fell out of love with beat juggling, and then when I started juggling with Serato, and then also on the 12s, I really enjoyed juggling on the 12s. I fell back in love with it again. So I was like, oh, it's not frustrating anymore. Like I don't have to worry about anything skipping. If it gets off, it's my fault, you know, and I'll take that. But I can prepare for that. I can't prepare for like the needle bouncing off and then it being in a totally different place and then me sounding like crap. So I just wanted to add that.
That's an interesting point about just the differences in terms of what you get used to. Like with the technology, you get used to obviously cue points, being able to loop, you know, instantly and things like that. But when you're playing vinyl, you have to, you know, just go back to thinking about it how we did in the 90s or, you know, early 2000s before these tools were standard. And, you know, for me, I'm not necessarily ever playing a record from the top to the end. I'm, you know, dropping in the second verse, or I'm, you know, just cutting a hook from such and such. And on vinyl, you've got to definitely be thinking ahead in a different way than you do when you already have, you know, that metadata set on MP3s.
I want to interject here. I'm maybe going a little bit off, and I know you've got 19 million little cards there with a lot of things on them, and I want to get to those. But while we're all here, there's just one thing I want to sort of touch base on, which is kind of the notion of, as much as we're talking turntablism up here, there's a part of me that just wants to address, while everyone's here, sort of its role in 2019. And as much as we're talking, like it's like yeah, the beat juggling, I totally agree. But at the same point, I'm in with everyone who knows about this. But for people who are out there, it's more of a question to you guys, just from my perspective. How much of turntablism is even revered in 2019 and or cared about and or acknowledged and or, you know, even when you try to flex, how sometimes, depending on the crowd you're in front of, back in the day when we first started, it was like if you could rock doubles of its time, you were the man, like, oh, or you know, or you could do a beat juggle and do it flawlessly. People would be like, yo, kudos to you, you know, one level up. But in 2019, how many times have I been in situations where the best turntablists go to play, and I'm ready to see them play, and they have to reel back their skills because the crowd is in a situation now where they don't even recognize it. I might as well be speaking Spanish to them, and they don't understand Spanish, and so it's a little bit of a lost art, or a little bit of a lost attempt to try and educate them. And sort of, I just kind of want to pick people's brains on that because it's a very interesting thing for me, and I don't know if again, I didn't mean to like slice into your thing, but just while we're here, it's something that's very relevant, and it's very sort of on the pulse of what's going on now, because I'll see people like Craze or A-Track play, and they're trying to fuse in a little bit of their skill, and to a degree they do, whether or not the crowd responds. So kudos to them for that. But it's a situation where the crowd in this day and age, if somebody is going up and hitting play and standing there and just cheerleading, really how much of the crowd even understands what's happening now. So we're in this weird space where I'll still do it because I love to do it, and I find ways to sort of like, my age-old thing is like, you know, 2 for them, 1 for me, 2 for them, 1 for me. Like, I'll still throw down for the people who want to see me do my core of who I am, but in 2019, it's a little difficult to try and just show up and beat juggle on somebody. It's almost like punching them in the face, be like, check out my beat juggle. They're like, I don't know what this is. I don't even know. Like, is there a drop involved? I don't know. Like, so the climate has changed so much that turntablism in 2019 is such an interesting, you know, I don't know. I didn't mean to go so off topic. I apologize.
No, it's great because that was number 17. What What does the future of
Yes.
turntablism look like to you? So we'll just bounce that
Apologies,
question.
Raj. I knew you were going to get there. I
We,
apologize.
we'll bounce that question to the rest of everyone. We'll go right here to Rich, and then Cwitch, and then we'll go back to the top there.
That's a great point that you bring up. And humbly, I consider myself the least turntablist of everyone on this panel. I'm ambidextrous. I can use both hands. If the cachet is 0 to 100 in terms of babies to flares to crabs, whatever the vocabulary is for battle, turntablist cachet, I like to think I'm in the 65th to 70th percentile of at least being able to apply it in a club format, not in a true turntablist vocabulary, where the point that you bring up is interesting, because that degree of difficulty conversation in battle, that's everything. Even the human component of making the mistake to get to that degree of difficulty can win you a competition. But on a dance floor, your homeboys that like turntablism, his girl wants to hear the third verse. All that wild shit in the front, unless you crazing it, Z-tripping it, Jazzy Jeffing it, and we can go on and on with the people in the canon who are, they're chameleons. They're mixed martial artists. They can box, they can wrestle, they can do jujitsu, whatever. I feel like that about in terms of genres, in terms of to move around a wide range of genres of music, but when it comes down to that technical toolbox, there is an argument for what's relevant in a room full of ladies that want to dance, and what's relevant in a room full of fellow turntablists who want to be as acclaimed as the people on the stage are. They're two totally different schools of thought, and I think that we conflate them a lot without unpacking this very dialogue. Because, I remember being in Europe in the early 90s, and the first time I went to Europe was 96, and it was in Amsterdam with Casey the Funkaholic from Paradiso. I don't know if anybody's been to Amsterdam and is familiar with Case, but Case said something to me that changed my perspective on the game light years. And we had just played a party together. It was my first time playing there, first time playing with him, pause DJing with him. And he was like, man, you're one of the best DJs I've ever heard in my life, but why are you in such a fucking hurry? I was like offended. Like, fuck you talking about? I wasn't doing a lot of scratching. I wasn't do-do-do-do-do-do. And he was like, no, you played Shaka Khan Clouds, and you were gone after the second hook. And I find that very frustrating. As a European, with English being my third language, and Shaka Khan being who she is, and what the end of that song means for her to conclude her point, is the most important thing to me. And I come from that East Coast, boom bap, get in, get out. I love Timmy Regisford and Shep Pettibone, and I also love Grandmaster Rock Raider and Cash and Jeff. So there's this there's a speed and a pace to getting in and out of your tunes that is not turntablism. Maybe it uses particular dynamics of what turntablism represents, but that in and out thing and that conflation, some of us dip into the other wheelhouse without having rehearsed it because we think we're fucking clever. We all think we're the most clever motherfucker in the room until you do that move that you didn't rehearse enough at the crib, and you're in control of the party, and the girl that's been dancing in front of you for the last 2 hours is like, psst. Trying to be a fucking turntablist when you need to focus on being a club DJ. And, there's nothing wrong with either. There's lefties and righties, there's ups and downs whatever. But I think you bring up a fantastic point about the way that we tend to conflate these toolboxes, and they are not to be conflated in the way that we do on a regular basis until we get to this unpacking point that you're asking for, you know?
Real quick, Rich, do you remember telling me that story the week after it happened? So Rich is one of my, main mentors from Philly, and and honestly, Rich gave me the platform to be in front of the audiences that I really cared to be in front of, especially in New York. And he used to play this room called APT, and he was gracious enough to let me come rock with him sometimes in his place when he'd be traveling. And we were playing this room together the week after that happened, and I was beating the dog shit out of that room, bro. Like, it was such a good night, and it was exactly that. It was just me being anxious, me being like, yo, I got him in the headlock, let me hurry up and follow up with this shit. And Rich is like, hey, something was, I don't remember how you said it. I'm sure you said it flyer than I could say it, but, you were like, I got something for you. Like somebody just said this to me last week in Amsterdam, and I'm about to say it to you. You were like, yo, you're beating the shit out of this room. Kudos. But watch this. And then literally I had it at like 120 or something, and you dropped it to like, you played like fucking Tell Me Something Good or something. And the energy went from here to here, even though you like
I need to
completely
interject.
dropped the...
Yeah, I need to interject. That happened to me doing a 7-inch show with Cut Chemist and Shadow, and those guys are the dons of rocking funk 7 inches and everything. And so I came at it from a different perspective, chopping up, rock records and just whatever. So I had sort of my whole thing, all my cue points, doubles, everything mapped out. And I went to London, and we had a show at one of the big venues there. And it's the first time I met Keb Darge. And if you know who Keb Darge is a huge Funk 45 guy. In that scene, he is the Don. He's got all the records, the $3,000 pressings that only they made 7 of. He's got those records. And he went on before me, and he played his first record, played the record, started it, and it went pretty much to the end of the record before anything happened. And he got on the mic. He's like, that was from, Norwegian something or other. And here's this next one from Budapest. And he plays a song and didn't mix either of them. And I was like, that was whack, right? Next song he comes in, one was from Budapest. Here's this one from wherever. And he plays it again. By the 4th record, he had the whole crowd doing this. Didn't mix one record, played the song from start to finish, and I was like, oh shit, I gotta go on after this guy. He had that room bouncing, didn't mix one record, and I was like, I'm doing too much. I'm doing way too, I'm like, hold on, I gotta put my neck in the next one, this has got the sticker here, but that's on the right turntable, that one's on the left turntable, hold on, I gotta make sure this one's, that one goes immediately after that one, but that's a +2 on that one. All that shit I was doing, I was like, that guy showed up with 20 records and murdered.
Bro.
I was like, shot a hole right through my boat.
Remember Norman J in Australia?
Yeah.
Killer, same style, but it's exactly that. It's about what he's playing, and it's about the style of his presentation more than just, bang, bang, bang.
I think as turntablists, we forget that that's rule number 1. And it's funny because when I hear a lot of the purists shit on the guys who are the EDM guys who just go up there and play their pre-programmed set, again, not my favorite thing to watch, not my favorite thing to listen to. I'm not as inspired, but if it's working, I get it. Kind of like how Keb Darge mopped the floor, and I was like stressing going up with all my technical skills when it's really, it was just, it made me stop and go, I need to rethink my whole thing. So, it's funny when people bash on the new cats going up and doing their thing. It's like, if it works, but again, that just sort of speaks to the question I propose is, how relevant is turntablism in 2019 in that regard? I mean, just because I can speak that language, not every room I walk into will even understand that language. So I find myself, being stoked that I know how to do it, but also not pulling that tool out of the tool belt that often, or needing to, because we're in a climate where it's not even necessarily even appreciated and or I'll try and educate a little bit. I'm always trying to probe and prod that situation, but it's a while the thing is talking turntablism, I kind of wanted to just throw that into the mix almost as a devil's advocate. As much as I love being a turntablist, it's also like, where is that in 2019?
Cwitch is a DMC competitor, and you've competed in a lot of contests too. So what do you think about 2019 and future for the turntablist?
So yeah, I was trying to think about how to say this. I'm not sure how to carry this, but like I said, I started when turntablism was just coming out, being termed and being brewed out. And as it came out, like, it was exciting to see. It was really popping, and we're talking about maybe like mid to like late 90s, going into the early 2000s is when turntablism was really starting to boom and being recognized. And a lot of that I found related from DJ battles. That's where you would see a lot of the latest turntablist tricks, how people were doing stuff, and people were getting really good. You would see a lot of stuff you've never seen before, and like I said, as time was going by and turntablism was growing, the bar was just really starting to raise. Come fast forward, like 8-10 years later, like it got to a point where everyone was just on a really high, good level, that for a person who didn't know turntablism, it flew over their head. And I think that's where we lost the crowd. So now, like, everyone got so intricate, everyone got so technical. It may sound good to us because we've been doing this, so we understand what's going on. But for someone who may be new to it, it's like, what the hell is this? I don't know what's going on. The saying is real. Like, it may just sound like noise to someone. And like, if it's
Can you just let the record play?
Yeah, exactly.
Can you just play the record?
Exactly. So, bringing turntablism into like DJing in general, and in general would be like, DJ sets with mixing or being in the club and stuff like that. One thing we have to understand as, having a turntablist background is balance. I mean, if you want to present it, turntablism into your sets. Do I think turntablism is important for your DJ sets? Honestly, no. But just as much as a DJ, your signature is created by your selection. The stuff you're playing, how you're playing it, how you're presenting the song. That's your signature right there as a DJ. And to kind of stretch your signature a little farther, like I said, it's not necessary, but that small little jigga can make your signature that much more longer, if that makes sense to you guys. So, like, in long-term short, do I think turntablism is important? No, but it helps. As far as the turntablism scene in general right now, right now, like I said, about mid-2000s, we kind of had a big drop-off. We lost a lot of attention in that. I kind of feel it's in an evolution stage right now. So we reached its peak, and it's dropped down over years, but at the moment we're at right now, I'm actually excited to see where it goes, because we're coming at a point where it's coming back around to its peak. You know what I mean? And speaking with Z talking about, and everyone really talking about the possibilities of what's next with digital era, Serato and all that stuff like that. Possibilities are endless. Like, I'm excited to see what these guys come up with. You know what I mean? And see it reach its peak again. Will we hit a bottom again? Maybe, maybe not. But it's about balance. Like, in order for the turntablists and the crowd to be connected, like, we have to understand that balance. We don't want to go over your head. We don't want to underpresent it. I mean, if you decide to present it, you know what I mean? We just got to stay on track with each other and read the crowd. DJs, one of the biggest things that makes DJs really good is being able to read the crowd. You know what I mean? So, well, yeah, that's kind of how I see the future
Can
going.
I add something to that? My friends that know me know I make a lot of sports analogies. Let's talk about this as if we're talking about basketball. When you go to the park and you see a New York City point guard and he's just got a string on the ball, crossover dribbles and between the leg dribbles, that's what you go to the park for, right? You go to the park to see these poets, these street poets do these fantastic, athletic, creative things. In a sense, going to watch an ITF or a DMC, to me, in terms of the visual dynamic of it, it's the same thing. You're going to see somebody do these things and these ill tricks with the ball. But in the playoffs, there's a difference between East-West basketball and North-South basketball. North-South basketball gets buckets. East-West basketball is pretty. Your shorts are ill. I like the way you lace your sneakers, but I ain't seen you get a bucket in a fucking hour, dog. And that's not judgment. It's not a wag of the finger. It's an illustration of, you know, for those of us in the room that aren't actual hands-on disc jockeys, it's a way to understand the way that these lanes get carved out, and why my point earlier about how we conflate them sometimes screws our own game up. You know, you can screw yourself up overdoing it. You can screw yourself up underdoing it. You think people who love DJ Jazzy Jeff want to hear DJ Jazzy Jeff mix all night? Hell no. 3 of them parties and that tour is a wrap. You think they want to hear me cutting and scratching every mix? Absolutely not. But if I'm using the Jeff and me comparison, both of us have a little bit of that other side of the game in our game. And to your point about being aware, being alert, understanding your surroundings, you should be able to dial that up and down a bell curve.
I always feel it, for me, the way that I'd like to approach it is you give them about, you know, say you break your set down into quarters. The first quarter is about you sort of sussing out what you got. Second quarter is about giving them the ability to sort of feel comfortable. It's like almost like the hors d'oeuvres, the fried food, the easy, you know, chicken fingers. Who doesn't love those? Cool, we got those. By third quarter, you got them in. Third quarter, you're like, okay, now that I've won over I've won you over. You're not leaving. You're not going to run over to the other thing. That's when I'm going to flex a little bit. Now I'm going to show you my shit. I'm going to show off. But by fourth quarter, we're coming home. I'm not trying to that was a third quarter move only. Fourth quarter, it's a close. But if I were to lead, if I were to start out with, people are like, what? Don't get it later. You know what I mean? So it's like you gotta get them in. It's like a 5-course meal. You've got to plan your course. You don't start with dessert first. You ruin the whole meal. So I think I see a lot of people also doing that. Jeff does that. A-Track does that. Craze sometimes will do the same thing where it's like you got these guys who are titans at skill, but they don't lead with that. That becomes almost like a little bit of a caveat of like, that's why I am who I am, signature move, but like third quarter. So something to think about, just in mapping out your arc. I found out how it works for me, but some people who, if that's all you do, it's kind of funny. I remember when A-Track, all he was a battle guy, and we would have conversations where he would call me and be like, dude, I need to get out of this battle circuit. How do I mix? And we would have 2-3 hour long conversations about mixing. It's like, dude, okay, you got to unlearn everything. Start over. Still keep your skills, but like figure this part out first. Get your dance floor cracking. Look up. A lot of people don't even do that too. That's a whole like, if you're a turntablist, I know a lot of guys are just down here or at the screen or whatever. It's like, look up. Oh shit, there's nobody here. You know what I mean? Oh, what? Okay, hold on, I gotta start over. Start over button. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's important to start there. Like, look, what's in front of you? Understand the climate and know when to pull out the speaking in tongues moment. Pow, third quarter. Flash them all. You know what I mean? That's probably the moment they'll remember. However, you got to get them there. You can't just I don't know, it's just arc, story arc.
So I completely agree. And what you're talking about is DJing. In my perspective, there's DJs, which are selectors or selectas, and vibe setters. You're running the room. You're giving them you're taking them on a journey from point A to point B. That's a DJ. And you can be an amazing DJ and not scratch or juggle. But you can't be a DJ without being able to mix or to give them on the journey in some way, shape, or form. Nowadays, you don't have to beat match anymore, but that is that. And it's exactly what you're saying about conflating them. Turntablists are not DJs. In my opinion, turntablists are not DJs, they're musicians. DJs are selectas, they're not musicians. You know what I'm saying? So turntablists, They're playing, DJs are playing other people's music, and they're creating soundscapes, and they're doing creative things with them, and they're making collages and putting together puzzle pieces. But they're not playing music that they're playing themselves. Does that make sense? Whereas turntablism is you're playing an instrument. It's coming out of you, your soul. And even beat juggling is kind of in the middle, because you have to use beats that already exist in order to create your own music with it, but you're still using them as instruments, as sounds, as pieces of the more intricate pieces of the puzzle. But I kind of look at beat juggling as in the middle of DJ and turntablist scratcher. So I think that's where the problem lies in what you're talking about, or the struggle, the challenge for DJs who are also turntablists and are known coming up, like I keep referencing my husband and I together as a we, because we came up, you know, he released the first turntablist album ever. That was his first foray into production. So he was branded, stamped, like you're a turntablist, that's all you are, that's all you'll ever be, you can never be anything else. And he's struggled to, you know, come out and produce in other realms because people just look at him, just want him to scratch, and that's it. But he's like, I do all these other things, right? And people just, and that happens if you come out as like a hip hop DJ and then all of a sudden you want to play techno, you're going to get hated on by your fans. So that's a branding issue. But in terms of DJs who are turntablists, who came up when we came up and were known for that, and then the people still remember it and expect it, like when you got to see A-Track and he's dumbing down his set, I mean that in the most respectful way, but for the audience, you know, because they can't fully comprehend and they don't really want what maybe we want to see him doing, you know? And so he's then being a DJ and reading the crowd. And then you just got to make a choice now in 2019. I say you as in me. I had to make a choice and be like, do I want to do this anymore? Am I still passionate about playing mainstream music anymore because I can't be as creative as I want to be? I get bored. Up there, I'm not the kind of person that could be personally, soulfully satisfied by playing the song all the way through and then announcing where the next record's coming from and not playing the instruments. Like, that's not in my nature. It's not enough for me to get the reaction from the crowd. That reaction doesn't feed my soul enough to keep going. So that's one of the reasons why I stopped playing mainstream music, because I got tired of going to those clubs and being like, I can't do what I want. They don't get it. They don't want it. And so then I'm just like bored or unpassionate. Then I'm not like, not faking it, but I'm like acting like I'm enjoying it. But I had to do a really big reality check and be like, I'm not happy anymore. Why am I doing this? And so then it's like, okay, well, what can I do with this? And so now me as a turntablist and a DJ, you know, teaching is where I get that satisfaction now. And also in electronic dance music, you can be a lot more creative in production and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But I think it comes to a certain point where you kind of make the decision, am I going to keep going down this path? And maybe things will come back around and they'll just love it if you just, you know, masturbate on the turntables the whole time and scratch for yourself. But people don't want to hear it. It's a dance party. You got to keep them dancing. And no one wants to hear you scratch the whole time. And then, but it's the form. So if you're in a battle, that's what they want. They don't want to hear you mix. I mean, just mixing the song you need to come correct with your skills. And so I feel that maybe it's our responsibilities as artists to then make that choice or decide how we can work it. Like, you've come up with a great way to work it where it and you're still enjoying it, and then keep doing that. But it's up to us and to make that choice and not complain or shame other people, like what you're saying about a lot of people shame the new guys and girls that come up and might just press play and stuff. But it's really just a reflection of us. We're reflecting out, and it's really like we're looking into a mirror. I don't know if that just went way down the rabbit hole, but I think that's where it comes from.
Sonny, add on the future of 2019, and real quick, if anyone from the actual staff could tell me how much time I have left, because I'm having too much fun and I don't want to overdo it, but I can go all day. Because do this all day.
So I can be kind of quick, but I'm glad that Shortee made that distinction, because even if you apply for a radio job, if you apply to be a DJ, you're an on-air personality. You're not, actually like playing records. That's a mixer. So it is interesting that that there is a distinction, because I feel like you're right. Turntablists are musicians, and we're seeing a lot more of that. And I think we tend to focus on the party crowds who kind of don't care if you're trying to be a musician in the club, but there's a whole worldwide audience of people looking to see dope turntablism online. And there's a lot of that living on YouTube. My partner Destruct and myself, we produce all of the visual content for Serato. So, in our audience, they live for that. They basically are sitting on the edge of their seats waiting to see who we're going to feature next, just to see, how people can get funky with their tool, which is the turntable. We also see with Red Bull 3 style how people are kind of like bridging the gap between, the traditional DJ rocking a party as well as the turntablist. DJ Dynamics is one of the best DJs in the world in terms
He's here.
of
Shout
that
out
genre.
Dynamics.
And he is
So big shout out
right
to DJ
there.
Dynamics. And he's, competes in Red Bull, kills it every time. And that's one of those things where we actually see that being a platform proper for turntablism. The last thing I was going to say on that, in terms of being a musician, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Synthalist, but Vinrock and Gyro Funk are doing some of the most amazing bass lines and stuff, and they're actually constructing music proper like a band. If you weren't looking, you would think it was a band, but it's just two guys on turntables murdering it. So check that out, the Synthalist.
Nice.
Also, I think that the resurgence that you were talking about is directly related to what you're talking about, which is the videos and social media and stuff. So the resurgence of turntablism, I don't feel is in the clubs at all. I feel it's all online and on videos. And then also collaborating with other musicians and playing with bands as musicians or creating bands like what you were just talking about.
Everybody had great points. I love it. To, I think, sum it up, basically, it's picking your battles, choosing the spot to jump into. The whole don't put too many spices on one, food, because it's too much at the time. But it's also where you showcase the battle as well, the skills. The online stuff, yes, that's great. But does your club have a video screen? People actually get to see you doing your thing, or are you up high and they just hear the noise but don't put two and two together? So there's a lot of things that you guys all brought up, and every single one of those points were very amazing. And basically, that sums up a lot of what you may need to know going into becoming a turntablist yourself. Is anyone an aspiring turntablist out here? Like, you want to start scratching, like, for real, or at least looking into it? Awesome. So basically, guys, what are some of the pitfalls to avoid if you're getting into turntablism?
I just really quickly, just on the heels of where we're talking about, one other thing I wanted to point out is, if you're, the crowds themselves, I think, are a bit more savvy now to what's going on, whereas 7, 8 years ago, you would go and you'd see somebody up on stage, you wouldn't really know what they're doing. But if you're a fan of this music and you're a fan of this culture, we're in a day and age where you can walk into Guitar Center, you could buy yourself all the mics. You can walk into Guitar Center and buy all the things you would need to do this with for like under $1,000, and now you kind of are a little more savvy to what's happening. So when you as a patron go and see one of these people who's just hitting play and standing there, if that doesn't speak to you, you can kind of call them out and go, they're really not doing anything, because now I'm a bit more savvy as to what they're doing. So I feel like we're also in a situation now where, as a performer, I think people are wanting to see a little bit more. We've kind of gotten over the hump of, what is this new EDM? What is this dubstep thing? What, whatever. We've kind of gotten to a point now where people are like, no, I kind of know the climate and I understand the field, but now I want to go a little bit further. So it's very interesting to me to see where we are now, because I feel like artists can't really get away with doing nothing.
Right.
You can, but you'll get called out. You're kind of doing nothing.
Well, you gotta have pyro. I mean, if you don't have anything like that and a big setup, and you're just in your room, okay, everybody come over and watch me DJ. I'm in the
Yeah.
bedroom.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, you like that? Yeah.
It's interesting
You know,
to see.
you're not doing nothing.
It's interesting to see things more and more like boiler room sets where the focus is right on you. They've stripped out all the production, all the other stuff, and it's now very much about you and your gear in front of a crowd. Very like stand-up mic, like very sort of, let's just keep it acoustic. This is an acoustic set. Show me what you got. And now I think people are wanting to see more of that. So I'm very curious to see where we're going to go in the next 5 to 10 years, because I feel like turntablist stuff is going to come back in, and or just pushing the boundaries is going to become more of like, okay, well, what else can you do? I think we're there now.
I think consensus amongst all this, everybody up here at the panel, and we'll just nod with the head yes or no, but the future looks bright for DJs in general, right?
I sure hope so.
So, good.
It's up to us, though, to keep it bright, and as a teacher, that's one of the reasons why I teach, is because I want to, if we're not showing the next generation,
True.
we got to pass this on. Otherwise, and you can't talk smack unless you're actually actively helping to pass it, and you still shouldn't talk smack about them, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's our job to keep it bright. But and be more welcoming, like you said. I think that's because I feel like the younger or they're not necessarily younger, but the new generation of DJs might feel standoffishness from the old school peeps, and then be like, well, screw them. I don't want to listen to anything they say, and then that just ruins it, because then nothing's passed on and there's nothing shared, and so it looks bright. And if this wasn't a yes or no nod of the head, but I feel it's really important to say that it's up to all of us. Everybody in this room who cares about it. Well, even if you're not a turntablist or a DJ, but you appreciate it. Tell the people that are trying to do it, support them, to give them support and love, and tell them that you enjoy what they're doing. I think that's
also
important.
think it's important not to, you're doing it wrong. Yeah. This is the way it is versus.
There's only one way.
Yeah, it's like anything. Like if the approach is really it. If someone's curious about something and you're like, you're doing it wrong, or this is the way it is and you're wrong for doing it, you're just going to push them away, as opposed to just trying to sort of do it by example and having people come to you and answer questions. It's like being who likes being knocked on the door and be like, do you have 5 seconds to talk about Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior? You're like, whoa, whoa, dude, no, I don't have 5 minutes to talk about that.
I haven't ate breakfast yet.
Yeah, it's like, hey, would you like, let's talk about turntablism. Do you know about beat juggling and flares and scratches and orbits? Do you know about those things? It's like, whoa. No, it's a bit more like, hey, if you're curious about this, let me show you, but like you don't have to know it. Get people interested in like, oh, wow, maybe I want to learn about that instead of hammering on.
Guys, you guys have been a wonderful panel, and we got one more question to end this on, and I like this question a lot, so we're going to end it on this. Pressure makes diamonds. What is your favorite failure, and how did you learn and grow from it? Starting on the end. Sonny. No prep time.
Oh, man. In terms of failures, I don't know. I guess early on, I was underprepared at a gig. Just not really having my equipment be up to par. Some of that was because I wasn't really making money as a DJ yet. And, a lot of it was just like learning to improvise. So it was kind of like a failure that turned into a lesson. So that's the best I can come up with.
Thank you.
Not knowing my own value and worth, not feeling enough, and the failure experience, it's a constant battle. I think for everyone that battles with this kind of thing, or wanting to be loved and feeling enough, I think that's one of the reasons why we do so much when we're up there, because we're just like, oh, I got to do more. It's not enough. And the experience would, to encapsulate that, would be my first tour. Bobby, or DJ Faust, had released Man or Myth, and he had featured myself and DJ Craze, who's DMC champion, like 3 times solo, 3 times team. He's amazing. If you don't know of him, go check him out. And Shotgun. And then we followed that up with an EP. It was me, myself, Craze, and Faust, called Fathomless. And my first tour was on the Fathomless tour, where we started touring the US, and then we ended up going over to Europe after that. But I remember it was like in Texas or something, where it was like one of the first dates. I think it might have been the first gig on the tour. And I remember being up there, and it was like Craze, who hadn't won DMC yet, but it was the year that he was getting ready to battle. We all thought he was going to win an 8-track one. And we were like, oh, this 15-year-old kid just totally stole it from Craze. But anyway, so he was good. So even though he hadn't won yet, he was amazing. And then Faust, he's been DJing since he was in the womb, and he taught me. And so I was up there with these, what I thought of as legends, you know. And I'm the newest DJ. I'm also female, which was very rare back then. And I just felt like I didn't belong up there, even though I had worked my butt off to be there. You know, I wasn't the token girl in the crew. Like, I was practiced my ass off and everything, but I didn't. I was like, oh, this crowd just is here to see you and not me. And I just totally went down that zone in my head. I got so in my head, and I got really upset, and I left the stage, and I went to the bathroom. And I told him I was going to the bathroom, and I went in the bathroom and just started crying for like 20 minutes. This is like in like 97 or something. And then it had been a long time. And Faust comes to the bathroom. He's like, where are you? Like, we're supposed to be playing right now. And then Craze comes, and he's like, he was like, you get back up there right now. They came to see you. They paid to see you. And he's like, don't ever let people see you, don't ever advertise your screw-ups, and don't let people see that you don't feel like, you got to fake it till you make it, basically. It was what he was saying. And so he's like, they got me back up there. I went back up there, and I was like, okay, and I started scratching again, and the whole crowd erupted. And I wasn't doing the most advanced scratches. I wasn't scratching as good as Craze or as good as Faust, but they were there they were appreciated what I brought to that. And in that moment, I realized that I have value in this, and this goes to the new generation. You don't have to be the most advanced technical turntablist to be appreciated and valued and good. And so that is what I would say would be the most important failure that I grew from.
Thanks for sharing that. Thank you.
I think for me, it's there's a couple that come to mind. I'll try to make them very fast. But the first thing is trying to speak my agenda and my purpose and my everything, and trying to just vomit that on a crowd or on anyone who wants to hear it. Like, as a young up and comer, I was like so much about this is what I really want to do, that I was to the point where I was turning people off. So I think the first thing that I learned from that was to listen a little bit more, to sort of walk into a room, and instead of just being like, I'm here to do this, blah, 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 and just like have my spiel ready, it was a little bit more like, I'm going to walk in here, and I'm going to take the first 10 minutes and just listen. Let me just listen. And in those 10 minutes, because I was listening, it rearranged my whole agenda, and I figured out the way to still get my point across. So hearing versus speaking, I think, is a big thing. I think the second thing, and again, these are sort of failures that I've corrected over time, but if you're starting out, is making sure that you have the right team and the right squad around you, because there's a lot of people around you who have different agendas. Everybody has their hidden agendas, and if you're the leader of the squad, or you're the focal point, or you're one of the people that's sort of pushing it, there's going to be a lot of people who are behind you, or sort of are part of the enclave that sort of goes into a mission, and you have to make sure that you have the right squad of people and that they know how to play their position. Because many times I got into situations where I ended up looking back and realizing I'm really the one doing all the work, and these are all the people who are sort of, benefiting from my work. And so having to cut out those people and replace them with people who are actually are adding to the, the collective. So that's that. And then the last thing, which is the most important thing, it took me many years, was to figure out the balance of self. And we dedicate all of our time and energy into this, so much so that we end up alienating a lot of people that love us and that we love around us in marks for the, in putting the sight on the goal and trying to, like, at all costs, health, financial, whatever, that you want to get the goal. There is a way to do that, but it's also to be mindful that you're not stepping on anybody or hurting any sort of thing in your goal to get it, but just being mindful of your surroundings and understanding that if you pace it right, you can walk to the goal and still get the goal and still have all the things, as opposed to racing to it, getting there and realizing, what the fuck did I just do, and looking back at your warpath and realizing you alienated a lot of things. And those ends up things that you have to end up going back and fixing, and whether or not you have the goal in your hand doesn't really matter, because that's irrelevant. It's really sort of the path getting there and getting back. So surrounding yourself with people, making time for yourself, and taking your time to get to that goal, and being, those are all sorts of crucial bits. I could go on, but those are like the main three, I think.
Biggest mistake?
Favorite failure. Now, this is anything. It could be deep. Sure. I want you to share.
I think that there was a time period between 96 and 97 where I didn't realize it until later, but I'd lost my coachability. I grew up as an athlete my whole life, been surrounded by older boys and men that my mom would put in front of me that were always, all of us, your mom or your dad could say something to you for a decade, and then some teacher or some coach says the same exact shit, and you're fucking Christopher Columbus, like you all of a sudden you discovered some shit. I think there came a window of time for me where I lost my coachability. I began to believe in my own hype. I had just gone from graduating from Cornell University, playing a season of semi-pro basketball, working 2 Fortune 500 jobs, and then coming back to my music, which was with me prior to any of those things. After an educational experience like that, after an athletic experience like that, after a corporate executive experience like that, I kind of innocently thought I was the shit, which there's no crime in having self-confidence, but when you lose sight of the 10,000 hour rule, when you lose sight of the fact that drillers make killers, I don't know if anybody in here that plays Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, my sensei is saying that all day. Drillers make killers. The reason you're still a yellow belt and that guy is up to purple already is because he's in here 5 fucking days a week getting his neck cranked and getting his fucking elbows pulled off. And you come here once a week, that's why you're moving slow. You're not drilling. I'd lost that. Even as a basketball player, you practice 6 days a week, and the guys on your B team are better than any team you're going to play in the playoffs, and they're fucking crushing you all week in practice. That's why Saturday on game day, that's why you plow through people in game day. That's why you beat up people in your weight class as a fighter, because you're training with people that have a whole other toolbox, whole other level of experience, and I had lost that. And as we stated earlier, the best record you play is the record that saves you from your worst mistake of the night. And I kept on making the same mistake. I'm saving myself from the same error, whether it was being too social and letting the record get down to 4 bars left and trying to hurry up, and because I know how to freestyle, let me just beep, beep, bop, bop, boop, and then it's in, and then you get the right dancers or the wrong dancers in the room, and that one is a half a step off. All it takes is a half a step off the one to throw the flyest dancer in the room who everybody's following, throw him or her off. You throw the whole fucking place off. But without a coach, like, hey, time out. What the fuck did you take that shot for? You know what I'm saying? Like, you didn't see Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan or Phil Jackson and Kobe Bryant beefing at halftime when the Lakers are up 10. Like, we up 10 and coach is in my fucking face. You know, that's where greatness is found. So for me, it took a great deal of humbling. It took a great deal of humbling. It took walking into a room where I felt like I'm going to destroy this place. I don't care who's on the bill. And the guy who's on the bill next to me is just hungrier. He's just more humble. He's not clouded by feeling himself. He's so gassed to have the opportunity that he's fucking flawless. And then I'm like, fuck, I didn't expect that. And I ain't been drilling. And I'm on my own dick. Fuck. It makes for a lot of fucked up nights. It makes up for a lot of situations where you find yourself behind the 8-ball when you really should be out in front of the thing. And if you had just been drilling, if you had just respected, all of us, every single one of us is subject to the 10,000-hour rule. It takes 10,000 hours to reach mastery. I don't care what you say, where you from, who you with, how much money you got. If you don't put the hours in, you do not reserve the luxury of speaking in such terms. To this day, I've been in the business for 30 years as a professional, and I'm still far from calling myself that. And it came from a window of time where I've forgotten that and gotten away from those humble fundamentals. Well said.
Oh, and just one thing about that, if you ever get stuck and you're like into that mindset of, oh yeah, I know that, I know everything now, I don't need to learn anything. If you ever catch yourself saying, oh, I know that already, stop talking, I know that. Step back. That's a moment that you need to be like, no, okay, maybe I've heard this before, but what can I learn from this? So with that just slight little shift in your mindset, it changes everything. Because then you look at, like, I may have heard that story 10 times, but then the 11th time you said it, it clicks, like something, like I got it in a whole different way. So I just think that helps with, because I get in that too. It's like, oh, I know this already, whatever. And then it just holds you back.
Are dead. All the perfect people are dead, and all the angels are in heaven.
Yep.
We got to get over ourselves, work harder. There's somebody out there that's going to outwork you. You know, even in fighting, you know, you go to the gym, and Sensei, there's guys in our gym who are like tough guys. They think they're tough guys. So they come into a white belt class, coach put them with the yellow belts and be like, yeah, okay, this guy over here, yeah, when you get him in a rear naked choke, crank it. Don't hurt him, but show him the level, right? Us as DJs, we've had to do it. We've all had to deal with that arrogant person. But you come in with the humility, an open heart, and an open mind, and you just creatively maul him or her. Not even with the intent, you know? So the boomerang always comes back, man. Everybody you meet is the most important person in the room. There's no currency in being a jag-off, especially in our business. Some people believe that that's where the currency is in being a jag-off, and it's just not.
Well said. Cwitch, this is going to wrap it up for us. I just want you to tell me your favorite failure and how you learned or grew from it.
So I'm actually glad I went last because I had to think about this because the reality of it is you know I've been doing turntablism stuff for well over 20 years now, and the truth is I had more failures than I had success, especially entering competitions. I lost more than I won. It took me over like close to 15 years to get my first major title. When you hit these failures, like, you know, it could be degrading. It can really put you in a bad state. But I mean, if you really want it, you know what I mean. Like, you kind of just gotta just go for it. Like, as you kind of progress, you start to build expectations from people. Like, you know, like, oh, he's really good. He's gonna win this. He's gonna win that. It's true. You hear the pros talk about, like, when media starts talking, you gotta mute all that noise out. You know what I mean? And just focus on your craft. Believe in what you do. You know what I mean? Don't let anyone else tell you, like, that's, like the Z said, like, for someone to come in and be like, oh, that's not how you're supposed to do that. If you feel that's how it's supposed to be done, do it. You know what I mean? And just keep like striving. You know what I mean? And understand that, like I said, you're gonna have more losses than you have wins. But those wins will clear out your losses. You know what I mean? That's just my long story short with all the failures I've been through. So just keep pushing. That's all I really say.
Thank you, everybody. I think we have some swag. Jedith, we have some swag. All right, thanks for hanging with us. I'm Raj with BPM Supreme. Make some noise for our panelists. Please. If you actually want to get some hands on some really cool DJ gear, why don't you guys meet us at the Roland room right after this so you can get some hands-on time with Roland gear. It's really cool stuff. And perhaps we can get some people here to show you some techniques on it. I don't know if we're lucky. But either way, we have a step and repeat there, and our in-house photographer, as well as these other talented people. Please feel free to take pictures, have fun, chat with these lovely people, and thank you for coming out. Appreciate you.
Yeah.